Another day, another talk, and busy day. Holy crap! Like today is just slammed. All my materials decided to come in today, and truth is, I wasn't planning on that happening. So, and it's nice. I'm not gonna, it's fine. I have a little drawer box that I wasn't able to build. That I think I'll be able to build till tomorrow. So anyway, talk for today is you're pricing your products wrong. I'm gonna tell you guys some things that I've learned over the years about pricing and the different kinds of pricing structures that there are, and kind of talk about like the basic ones that everyone knows, materials, labor, stuff like that, and then talk about kind of the advanced ways that you price things and the advanced ways to think about how you want to do your pricing in the future, how you want to do your projects in the future, because truth is that as your company grows, your brand grows, your name grows, your name within the community, within the internet, whatever it might be, as that grows, you need to be growing the way that you price your products as well. And so I'm going to talk about that kind of stuff today. And again, this is like not stuff that a lot of people talk about. It's kind of not the most sexiest thing in the world to talk about, but we all like to make money, right? And truth is that if you want to make money as a furniture maker, you need to know this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to increase the price of your product. You're going to struggle to create demand for your product, right? Like I think a lot of us think that, we just see something online. We're like, oh gosh, that's really cool. I got to have that. Or you have some kind of an idea. Like I'm just going to find a woodworker to make my, whatever. Or I'm going to hire a designer and a designer is going to find a woodworker to make this thing. And truth is, there's a lot more to it. There's so much more to it if you want to be able to charge big bucks for your stuff, okay? So nobody needs to buy, a $10,000 credenza from me, right? But they do, right? And they do because I'm the only one that offers specific kinds of credenzas, right? I'm the only person that has a top tier delivery system, right? And that's a whole other thing that, we can talk about in pricing your furniture. Another thing that I do that's very different than a lot of people is I include free shipping in everything that I sell. Like it's not even a question. I don't care if you're, in Martha's Vineyard, if you're out in freaking LA, crazy trying to get out there, everything's super expensive. It doesn't matter. I charge the same thing for all of my pieces when it comes to shipping, because truth is that the shipping doesn't matter, right? It's just built into the cost. So anyway, my name is Eric Wilk, and I own the Resplendent Crow here in St. Louis, Missouri. We are a small furniture and paint company. We do about 500 pieces a year right now, and we're a small 7-figure business. We have about 8 employees right now. Might just be getting ready to go up to 9, so we may hit double digits again. Like, woo! At the height of COVID, I had 25 employees. Insane. But anyway, so yeah, we got a small furniture company here. It's a good middle-class living, and I do these talks. I try to do them on a daily basis, just kind of talk to you about the furniture business, things that are happening in the economy, how it affects a small furniture business. And I do this because I feel that I feel that we need more people that are jumping into being small business owners. We need more people that want to become business owners, that want to, take on the challenge of trying to sell their stuff, right? Taking your products and going to people and saying, hey, would you like to buy my product? Or hey, here's my product, here's the price, and dealing with the BS of putting yourself out there and trying to grow a business, right? To convince somebody to buy your product, right? Or to sell your product in such a way that, people think that your product is better than somebody else. All these kind of things that, we do as business owners that is kind of fun, So anyway, topic of today is, again, sorry guys, got a freaking itchy eye. Topic for the day is going to be you're pricing your products wrongly, right? I do that honorable Trump. He just talks like such a goober, It's very wrong. It's so bad. Hugely, bigly. It just cracks me up. But anyway, so we're going to talk about pricing our products. Okay. Now, the thing is most people think of pricing your products, and again, we can look at this thing from kind of like 2 different standpoints. We can look at the thing from the standpoint of, you're a person in a garage that's, trying to grow a company, trying to grow a brand, whatever. Maybe you're just starting out, you got some tools, stuff like that. And then we can also talk about it from someone who's in my situation because, I do have a factory, right? So you're a little bit beyond your garage or a little building that you have, where you're in more of a larger facility with a lot more space, a lot more overhead, things like that. So we'll talk about it from those 2 standpoints and just kind of go over the topic of pricing products. Okay, so again, when you're starting out, and really what it boils down to is odds are the only thing you have is rent, right? You got your rent or mortgage on a home, because usually most will start out in some kind of a garage, and And truth is that you're not paying facility rent. You're just paying the mortgage, which is cool. And you don't have to worry about insurance, because the insurance on your mortgage, the insurance you have to have for your home covers all that stuff, So you're kind of taken care of. So you don't have to think about a lot of things. So you can get away with just doing, basically material and labor, which is easy. It's so easy when you can do that, to be quite honest with you. But truth is that once you branch out, you have to start thinking about a lot of other costs. There's so many costs that go into running a business that are far and away more than labor and materials. Just the the insurance and the different kinds of materials, right? The things like the electrical, the insurance, the rent you have to pay on a building. Maybe you got loans that you have to pay back. There's all kinds of things that a business has that someone that's like a sole proprietor at home isn't going to have. So there's a lot of different things that you have to take into account. And again, I think all this stuff is very basic, right? Which is why I'm not going to talk about it a ton. I'm just going to kind of hit the highlights. Pricing structures change as you take on more responsibility from a facility standpoint, hiring employees, just different kinds of things like that. Learning about general liability insurance, facility insurance. Maybe you got insurance for your commercial vehicles. So there's a lot of things that go into a business as you start to as you start to grow. So anyway, the experienced person, right? The person that has to have more volume, I guess, right? Is got to start thinking about things like advertising and marketing. And when you have those costs, it changes how you have to price your furniture, right? Because basically what's happening is when you're in your garage, right, you're just kind of starting out. The truth is that you can absolutely factor in advertising, marketing, all these kind of things. And truth is you can do it much easier because you have the resources, because you're not paying, a second mortgage, you're not paying, second types of insurance. There's thousands of dollars in costs that you're not going to have if you are working from home, right? You have a garage shop, as I say. You don't have those costs, so you can actually learn the marketing and advertising side while you're there. And as that advertising and marketing helps to grow the exposure to your company, you can then branch out and try to get into a facility, take that plunge into your own space and learn how that works, which is a whole nother freaking ball of wax. So if you're gonna take that plunge, you got to be thinking about those kind of things, because once you move out of the garage, right, out of that building in your home where all of your extra costs are basically rolled into your mortgage, you have to have the volume and the sales in order to take on all that extra rent. And this is all common sense. I know I'm not blowing anyone's mind here, but the point is that you can use that time when you're at home learning to grow a company, right? Learning to build your pieces, learning to figure out your style, all these kind of things. You need to use that time to learn about advertising and marketing, because you're never going to get that opportunity again to basically be able to spend that money in the way that you can spend it when you have your own facility. Because the truth is that rent and that insurance and all the freaking employees that you have, all that stuff comes due every other week basically. And if you don't have the sales to cover that, you're out of business, right? Then you're going back to your house, right? And so anyway, point is that when you're pricing your stuff, you have to include all these things. And again, everybody knows this. So I'm not blowing anybody's mind here. I'm not trying to. We've laid out the basics, right? The basics of how most people price their stuff. They're including their general labor costs, their general insurance, and blah blah blah. Maybe you tack on 25%, and that's the price that you go for. I think it's pretty common, right? So the thing that the people are doing incorrectly, that is the heart of my talk, is I wrote all this stuff down because it was kind of crazy. When the person that reaches what I call escape velocity, right, which is not a new word, but when you reach that point where you have enough customers to basically support your business every month without having to bust your ass to generate sales, right? Once you hit that escape velocity, that's kind of the time that you need to turn on how you price your products, right? You need to start thinking about your brand, and you need to start thinking about what it is that you do that is so superior to everybody else. Why have you been able to get out of your garage to make it into a facility, right? Pay that facility rent, all that insurance, all the labor, all that kind of stuff for 1, 2, 3 years. Why have you been able to do that? Because truth is that most people can't, right? So you got to be willing to tell yourself hey, what I'm doing is really cool. I have a really good product here, and what I'm doing is awesome. I need to get paid for that, right? And you have to be able to kind of think about it like that. You got to kind of think like you're kind of a badass, and it's important for you to think of the product that you make and the business that you've grown is awesome, and that's worth something. So you got to start thinking about your brand. What is that brand worth? Is it worth anything? Is this something that that someone is willing to pay for, right? So the company that can do that reaches this escape velocity, has accomplished several things, and some of those things that they've accomplished, I wrote a lot of these things down because I just wanted to make sure I remember all this shit. Is you've hit what's called the Lindy effect. And I did a video on this, and I talk about it fairly regularly on my talks because it's a big deal. Get on there, Google it, and Google the Lindy effect. And basically what the Lindy effect is it basically just means that you've been in business long enough that you've broken out of that 5-year situation where most businesses go under. Most businesses go under in year 1, then it's year 3, and then by year 5 they're gone. So if you can break out of that, that means that you have learned to weather sales downturns, you've learned to weather slowdowns in the economy, you've learned to weather employees leaving, machines breaking, rent going up, insurance growing up, maybe employees getting injured, you've been sued, you've had customers come after you. I mean, you've done enough stuff in that 5-year span to take effect of that Lindy effect that people in your area or on the internet in your industry know you. And that's what happens when you are able to stay in business long enough. You're able to, it basically just means that you've been diligent with your cash, with your customers. You've provided a good service or product long enough now that more people trust you. So when people trust you, more people are going to be willing to buy from you. And this is a very important thing. And I don't think enough people understand. I think a lot of people think that basically what you do is you just make something and you put it out there and then people come buy it, right? For whatever reason, whether they buy it for a little money, a lot of money, whatever. You just put it out there and people buy it. And the truth is it does not work that way. There are versions of that can work. You can put stuff on Facebook Marketplace, on eBay, on Etsy, on Shopify, any of these places. You can do that and you will be out there amongst all the other sellers, right? But the truth is that no one's going to notice you, And truth is that you haven't been in business long enough for the like, know, and trust factor to happen, okay? And this is another thing that I want to talk about with this particular talk. When you're an escape velocity company, you've probably achieved some of what's called like, know, and trust. And this is good stuff for people. And I think that most people don't want to hear this kind of stuff because it's not super sexy. But when you're a company that people like, know, and trust, especially on the internet, you will develop a large customer base. Companies like Google trust you to be the provider of whatever service it is you provide. And again, you can have an amazing product right off the bat, and Google is not going to put you at the top of the algorithm. They're just not. Facebook is not going to put you at the top of the algorithm. Instagram is not going to put you at the top of their algorithm. YouTube is not going to put you at the top of their algorithm because you're not a part of that holy trinity of things, right? So people have to like you, okay? And basically what that means is that, again, once you've hit that Lindy effect, it takes years to develop all these things. But once you've hit that, the like factor, it means people like you, right? Which means you've put your company out there. Your brand has been around long enough. Enough people have seen it that there's enough energy on the internet or in your local community that people know about you, right? And they like you. They like your content. They like what you're putting out in the world. They like those vibes. And that gets into the Google algorithm, and more searches come up for you, more what's called organic search, right? You become at the top of what's called the SEO, which is search engine optimization, all these kind of things. And so this is all, not related to this talk, but truth is that these things help you to get that like, right? And then you got to go to the know. And the know is this thing, like, are you knowledgeable, right? Do they know you? Do they know what it is that you're providing? It's very important. So that's why we put this content out. We put it out here on YouTube, we put it on Instagram, Facebook, we have Resplendent Crow, Resplendent Home, Modern Warner, all these brands that we have and web pages that we have help for people to know us, right? And for people to like us. And this stuff builds on this thing, but it takes years to do it. I mean, literally takes years. It's a wild thing to get people to like and know you. Some people are flash in the pan, right? You do it right away, but the truth is that most people, it takes a long time for the internet to realize that you even exist, but it happens. And it happens in kind of that 3 to 5 year range where you've put content out consistently and you've built up this essentially like, know, and then trust, right? And trust is the last thing, and it's the hardest thing to build because truth is anybody can make. I mean, any swinging dick with a a table saw and a track socket make furniture, right? I mean, how many people we've seen making river tables and, people making, just whatever, whatever kind of furniture they want to make, and they're super entertaining, but they're not making furniture for other people, right? So there's someone that you trust with entertainment, but you're not going to trust them to build you a piece of furniture because they don't have that trust factor, right? They don't know who you are. You're just some entertaining person on the internet, So when you put enough content out there and your business has been around long enough, right? So those two things coming together create that trust factor, and when you've been on, when you've had a website and a business long enough, or a store for that matter, long enough, you get that like, know, and trust. And it's the most important thing in business, right? And once you do that, you can then price your products in a way that nobody else can. Nobody else can. And it's the thing that, again, probably not the sexiest talk in the world, but this is the thing that people have got to understand. If you want to get out of your garage, or you want to get out of like this 9 to 5 where you're working for somebody else forever, and whether you're hating your job, you like your job, whatever, point is you want to get out of there. This is the kind of stuff you have to understand, this unsexy, information about like, know, and trust and escape velocity and, doing it every day for 5-10 years. People don't want to hear that shit, but it's the truth. And then you got to do the videos. You got to show people how you make things. You got to show people what you're selling. You got to talk about your product like it's the greatest thing on earth. And I don't see enough people talking about their products, with some gusto, right? A little bit of hubris, right? It's like really important that you talk about your stuff like it's the greatest thing on earth. That's part of being a salesman. So anyway, once you've done that, once you've reached that escape velocity, you have the like, know, and trust factor down. You got a good presence on the internet. Google loves you. Instagram loves you. YouTube loves you. You can then start pricing your stuff according to what you really have there, which is an established brand. And this is the stuff that people think that just making furniture is making furniture. Someone's just going to come to you and say, "Oh, great, I want you to make my table because it looks like you make tables." They're never going to give you what you want. What you want is you want someone to call you and say, "Hey man, I've been watching your videos for a while. I've seen your stuff online. I really need you to make me a table. I want you to make me a table." Okay. And this is the difference between the guy that works in his garage or the guy that, is a 3 to 5 year company versus the person that's been in business for 10 years, right? The person that's been in business for 10 years has everything. They've been in business long enough, they have a brand, they have a reputation, and hopefully the reputation is good, but they have all these things, right? And if you create a product that somebody absolutely has to have, you create the last and most final thing, which is lust. And I use this word and it always throws guys off because, lust is such a, it's like a sex type word or something you look when you're talking about women or men. But what you're doing is there's products out there that, men and women want, and they want it more than life itself. Like they will mortgage their home to get these products. For guys, it can be whatever, cars and watches, and for women, it's handbags and, handbags and whatever the fuck it is women buy, fashion, clothes and diamonds and stuff like that. There are things that everybody wants in life that they will trade their soul for. And a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm not like that. I'm not a consumerism." Like bullshit. Those are the customers you want. You want the people that will just about trade anything for the product that you have. And that's that lust that I'm talking about, okay? So I'll give you guys some backstory here, and I'll give you, or not some backstory, I'll give you guys some examples of what I mean by this lust and by this desire thing. That is the hardest thing to cultivate for any business. It's one thing if you're the guy that builds tables, right? You're the guy that makes tables in your garage, you're fairly well known around town. It's a whole nother thing when someone from New York that lives in a $15 million penthouse calls you up and says, "Hey, St. Louis person, I want you to build my furniture," right? Someone calls you from Jupiter Island out in Florida and says, "Hey, you know what? Your credenzas are awesome. I'm following for years. I want your credenza," right? That's what you want. You want these people to pay you whatever they have to pay you to get your product from the middle of the country all the way out to the East Coast or all the way out to the West Coast because they desire your product, right? Truth is, there's plenty of people in New York that can make Resplendent Crow furniture. There's plenty of people that can. Any swinging dick with a table saw can make a credenza. Making a credenza is not difficult. Painting furniture is not really that complicated. But doing a high gloss lacquer job, kind of difficult. It does take quite a bit of labor, not necessarily expertise, but a ton of labor, right? But when you've been doing it long enough and people have been watching your content long enough, they start to develop a desire for your product, and that desire can turn into lust very quickly. That's why when someone calls me from New York and says, "Hey, I want to order your campaign desk, it's $20,000, like anybody can build that desk. They don't have to buy it from me, but they buy it from me because I'm the person that does it all. They've been following me for so long, or they've been following my wife. That lust, that desire is what gets you to be able to charge an insane amount of money for your product. That's where you get, out of just busting your ass day in and day out, and you actually get to put a little money in your pocket. And that's what you want to get to, right? And that's what I talk about when I'm saying most people are pricing their products wrong. It's because they don't quite understand what it takes to get to the place where you can charge whatever you want. I use who's the guy, the Blacktail Studio guy. Like, I like his content. I think that guy's a pretty good representation of what it's like to actually run a company and do YouTube, right? Like, I think he's pretty open about how that situation works. And I would imagine that guy makes more money on YouTube than he does making tables, right? I mean, that kind of makes sense, right? Whereas with us, it's going to be the opposite, right? We're going to make way more money making furniture than we ever will making content, because we're an actual factory and a company, right? We've been in business for almost 10 years at this point. But what that guy does, which is really cool, and this is the very last thing I'm going to talk about, okay, is his content and his videos that he does on YouTube. Yes, that's where he's going to make all his money. He's going to make, he probably makes $500,000 a year just on YouTube, right? And the thing is that it's the exposure from those videos that leads to the furniture sales, right? And this is the last thing that you really need to understand about creating desire and lust, okay? So if you guys follow me, maybe you follow my wife, Suchetta, on the Resplendent Crow. So she talks about all kinds of things, and my wife doesn't talk about just furniture. And this is something that I think especially men might miss, okay? You want to become a brand. Like, this is really important, okay? You don't just want to be the person that makes furniture. And this is something that I didn't understand, and I'm still kind of learning this. Truth is that you want to be the person that's always putting content out there that's kind of interesting, that's maybe on point, but not necessarily on brand, okay? So the thing that my wife does, which is this is good information for you guys, is she used to think that what she had to do is she had to just put out furniture content, right? This is my painted credenza, and here's the the painted china cabinet, and this is some painted nightstands, and pretty paper on the furniture, but everything was furniture based. And after let's see here, after 6 years, I would say, of doing that, sales hadn't necessarily jumped through the roof. Like, it wasn't, sales were always fine, and COVID, was an anomaly. But truth is that sales were good, but they were never staggering, right? What changed the trajectory for us at the Resplendent Crow on what happened with our sales was my wife started talking about everything, right? So I've talked to you guys before, like I'm not a rich guy, but I was able to buy a massively impressive home, like a home that's it's like a guy who's a 4 marrying a 10, right? Like, you're like, how the fuck did that happen? Same thing. I was able to buy this house during COVID. It had been on the market for 4 or 5 years. And the truth is that nobody wanted to do the work, So, it's a massive house. It's got 3 massive decks on it. It's a panoramic view of the Mississippi River. It's on a scenic highway. It's beautiful. But what my wife started doing is she started doing content about fixing up that house, which has nothing to do necessarily with furniture, which we make here, which she'd been doing for 6 years before that. She started showing off the house, putting in a bar here, putting in one of our credenzas inside, and she started showing the rooms, and she started showing, making vanities and doing plumbing and just all kinds of shit that you wouldn't think would be helpful to the brand per se. But what it did is it brought in different customers. It brought in different eyeballs. See, what had happened with my wife is that she'd been putting out the same content, very, very intentionally putting out the same content for years. And what was happening was the people looking at the content it was just recycling eyeballs, right? People would just kind of glance at, but they got used to seeing the same thing so often that they didn't give it much thought. And it might have yielded, sales here and there. I'm sure it did. But what yielded the sales for us was the advertising, right? So we'd put out different kinds of ads, and we have an ads manager, and we have people that help us with marketing, but we started putting out our own ads. We started using apps like CapCut and InShot and Canva, and we've got a VA in the Philippines who chops up a lot of our video for us. And anyway, we started doing all that and creating new advertising that's more almost like homemade type advertising. And sales started to the volume of sales didn't go through the roof, but the quantity of qualified customers shot up exponentially, right? So instead of getting, I don't know, let's say 10 orders for vintage credenzas, I might get 7 orders for bamboo break front credenzas, right? So you're getting an average sale that might be $3,000 to $4,000 to an average sale that's more like $7,000 to $8,000. And yeah, there might be a sale or two less, but the overall number is significantly higher. And the margin on every one of those pieces of furniture is infinitely higher, right? So it allows you to make a little bit more money, which is always nice, with a little less work, but we had to change the way that we were putting our content out. So another thing you guys can think about is, instead of always putting out the same content, oh, this is what I build and this is what I make and here's the thing that I'm known for, try putting out something else that helps you to build your brand. So if you're a furniture maker that, likes to make, I don't know, like just say like to make vanities, again, show some projects of you redoing a bathroom and putting one of your vanities in. Like, people want to see the progress of a project that involves your product, not necessarily just your product. So I don't know if this makes sense to people, but this is kind of a long-winded conversation about the different things you have to do as your company grows in order to increase the price that you're able to sell your product for. And you need to be thinking about building your brand on top of your product, because it's not your product that is going to cause your price to go up. It's going to be the brand that causes your price to go up, And you can look at any major brand in the world that's in the luxury space, and it's not that their product is superior. It's not that they sell the best of anything and nobody else can compete with them. It's their name, And this is the thing that again, it's hard to think about when you're a young company, but I'll tell you what, if I could do it all over again, I would approach furniture making as though I was creating a brand first and a product second, and that's very tough to admit, but that's the truth. Like, I used to approach furniture as though I just want to be a furniture maker, and every time I would start a business, I would get signs, right? I'd put signs on my vehicles, and this is how I would kind of do it. I'd do maybe a little bit of Facebook advertising, but I just didn't understand it very much. And I would just do that with the intent, like, my goal was to get general contractors, right? Like, I'm just going to be the guy that, like, I make furniture, and that's as far as I took it, right? You want me to paint some furniture? Yeah, I'll spray a little bit of lacquer. You want me to make it stain grade? I'll make it stain grade. But that's as far as I took it, and that was the wrong approach to developing our company, right? And to developing a brand and being able to charge $10,000 for credenzas, right? The guy working in his garage can't charge that because they don't have the name, And we look at brands like, look at a brand like Ferrari. Like, is Ferrari's cars really worth $750,000 a piece? Like, I don't know, maybe not. Like, I used to have a Lotus. Lotuses are like $150,000. They're made by hand. They might not have V12 engines. They have V6s, but I'm guessing you could probably stick a V12 in there for $600,000, right? So there's things that Ferrari is able to do as far as the price they're able to charge. It's because of their name. It's because of the pedigree. They've been doing it for so long. They have such an established history that they can pretty much charge whatever they want, and people will pay it. And that's branding, guys. Like, that's literally branding. If your wife likes, likes clothes, like my wife loves fashion, you take the brand Chanel, or people know Gucci, any of these brands. These brands have been doing this stuff for so long. The name is worth more than the product itself. Like, does Gucci make an amazing handbag? Not really. Do they make a better handbag than Tory Burch or one of these other companies? Like, I don't think so. They're probably all kind of comparable, very similar, but they've been doing it for so long, and they have such a well-established name that they can almost charge whatever they want, right? And the other thing that I'll talk about that I did write down, I didn't talk about, is the importance of influencers, right? And this kind of goes into marketing, but I'll tell you guys a secret that companies use, and we've talked about this, but it's really expensive. One of the things a lot of companies do is they like to get celebrities to endorse their products. So, and sorry guys, Chanel's the company I'm going to use with, guys. I'm sure I'm going to lose everyone here, but the point is, Chanel makes amazing fashion. They make handbags, shoes, skirts, the iconic stuff that celebrities and royalty wear. These are very nice clothing. It lasts a long time. Their clothing lasts basically forever. They're like jackets and stuff like that. They sell vintage 40, 50 years old for like $5,000, $6,000. I mean, it's wild. But point is that these people, they hire celebrities, right? So they'll hire people like, Kristen Stewart, and who's that Kylie Jenner person, and they just get all kinds of celebrities to wear their stuff. And while it's not necessarily helping the quality of their product, it's increasing the brand awareness of their product, right? It's increasing the cachet of the people that utilize their products, right, or that buy their products. And it helps to elevate what they can charge for all their stuff. And we can do this in the furniture game. Like if you're in, I don't know how you do it necessarily if you were like an electrician or something like that, but when you sell something like furniture, it pretty much goes hand in hand. You know, you want to be the person that sells furniture to Congress people and to celebrities and musicians and all these. You want to be that company because, again, it allows you to up the price you can charge your products. So this is what I talk about when I say you're pricing your furniture wrong. This is kind of the stuff that I hope people will think about, or I give people stuff to think about. Like I know it's not, like I said, it's not the sexiest conversation in the world. I get it. But if you did want to get into business for yourself and you wanted to be able to, you know, get more, get to a higher price point for your product, these are some things you need to think about. And I wish I had known this stuff when I was, you know, 25 years old and trying to grow my first company when the .com thing was big. But just didn't know it. At that time, I just knew I wanted to sell, you know, I was trying to sell aquarium stuff. Like I was really into reef aquariums and I was trying to sell lights. So I just started putting my stuff on eBay, and I didn't think that, you know, like, well, there's 100 other people that are putting their lights on eBay. Why should they buy from you? Like, what makes your product better? And truth is that your product isn't better, you know, but your name can be. The content that you put out around your products can be better. The people that touch and are exposed to your products can be elevated, right? You can have celebrities talk about your stuff. Get your products in celebrity hands, photos with them, get them to talk about your products, all these kind of things. And it's the stuff that really allows you to get that price way up, you know? So that's it's a big deal, guys. It's again, it's something that I wish I'd known, and I don't know if people like this kind of stuff. It's not, I'm sure it's not the sexiest conversation in the world, but it's the thing that's helped me to get to where we are now, which is we can charge much more than I think most people can. It's not because we make a better product, you know, it's because we've been doing it long enough. The Lindy effect works in our favor. And then the other thing is that my wife has been doing content for so long. I've been doing content for a long time, and people are aware of the Resplendent Crow and the Modern Woodrunner brands. They're kind of in tandem. Google knows that we've been in business for a long time. We put out lots of content. We put out content regularly, and it gets a lot of traction, right? So, like, we've got 100,000 followers on Instagram. I think I've got maybe 5,000 or 6,000 on Instagram under the Modern Woodrunner brand, and the YouTube thing's growing. I think it's 4,000, something like that. Like it's moving, everything's moving in the right direction. But Google, its algorithm is not a once a day kind of a thing. Google knows what's going on the internet for decades, you know, so it knows that people talk about the Resplendent Crow. It gets engagement. The Resplendent Crow is associated with high gloss lacquer. The Resplendent Crow is associated with faux bamboo. It's associated with Dorothy Draper furniture. Like, it knows that we do all this stuff, and so it puts us to the top of the searches every time somebody searches that kind of information. You know, hot pink dressers, like, we're known for the company that paints high gloss pink dressers, you know? So these kind of searches and being known for this stuff is the stuff that you need to understand if you want to grow a freaking company. It's not about making some amazing product and then getting famous on YouTube. There's a lot more to it, you know? So, okay, what I got? I'm holy and blameless. Put Jesus' name on. Jesus, yeah. Yeah, good old Jesus. Yeah, he doesn't sell furniture, though. He's apparently an amazing carpenter, you know? So anyway, I think it's through my talk for the day. So what were they? Colossians. Whoever ye do and word ye, the same name as Jesus, give thanks to God. Yeah, great. I love people putting up the religious stuff. It's fantastic. Scripture's always a wonderful thing. There's a lot of great. The funny thing about the Bible, you know, side note, funny thing about the Bible is the older I get, you know, I've never been a religious person. My family's always been, they're pretty much all Catholic. But I've never been a religious person, you know, but I believe there is something, you know. It's like you have to go through life with a little bit of fear of the unknown, right? And the unknown is unfortunately death, right? We have no control over that. And that should kind of temper your temptation in life, right? If you're going to be a good person or a bad person, better be a good person in life, you know, because truth is that if you're wrong about the afterlife and you're a shitty person, like you're not going to like the afterlife, you know? And then the older that I get, I realize that the Bible, like the parables and the commandments and all these kind of things that are in the Bible, like a lot of that shit has turned out to be right. Like, and I don't think that it's because, you know, somebody just had all the answers. I think it's because that thing is so old and everything that we're seeing now, like we think it's all new and we think it's amazing and we have it all figured out. Truth is that we don't have anything figured out, and everything that we've seen was seen 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, and it might be in a different version, less technology, but the morals and the bad shit that happens in the world, like it's all happened before. Like what we think is what's happening today is nothing new. It's just nothing new, and that's one thing about the Bible. I think. Yeah, maybe I'll get into religion when I get older, a little bit older. But I don't know. It's Bible's an interesting thing, and again, I think that the Bible is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. So anyway, all right. One last thing here. Jesus died to make you perfect. Yeah, yeah. I know. Boy, am I not perfect? He fucked up there. So anyway, we'll see how it turns out. I think I'll probably do okay. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. And again. We're going to do What's in the Shop on Friday, and about 9, 10 o'clock-ish. And I do these talks most days about 5 o'clock, talk about business, furniture making, small business, all these kind of things, and kind of what's going on in the world today. So anyway, have a great day, and we'll yak y'all later.